Olawale Ismail is a senior lecturer for the African Leadership Centre at King's College in London. He joins us now from London. Many thanks for joining us today. So
Thank you.
Let's start with the attack against the French embassy. Why is France being targeted? And what was French President Macron's reaction to the attack?
Yes, thank you. France is being targeted or has been targeted by certain sections of the population, partly because there is a wave of anti-French, anti-imperialist feeling blowing across French-speaking West African countries. You've seen that in Mali, you've seen it in Guinea, you've seen it in Burkina Faso. Now it's spreading. This is driven by two or three things. One is the reality that citizens cannot feel frustrated that after over 10 years of French active military operations in the Sahel, violent extremism is not going away. Things are deteriorating. That's one. Two, many of the countries we are speaking about have a very booming young population where conversations on social media, information, propaganda, conspiracy theories are spreading, like wildfire. So it's very easy for many citizens to get attracted by some of this populist propaganda about, the role of the
Right.
West or otherwise in events in Africa. So that is also spreading it. But of course, you also have the reality of poverty among the population, and people are looking for alternatives. They are looking for a way out of the quagmire.
Very interesting what you say about this anti-French sentiment. We'll get back to that in a second. But in the meantime, Wagner's group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, has stated his support to the coup. What do we know about the risk of potential involvement of this group that we know it's also already operating in neighboring Mali?
There are speculations that either Wagner Group is whispering to certain sections of the rank and file, especially middle level officers in some countries, to stage a coup, promising them of support, by Wagner Group, but also by Russia. There are speculations around that. There are also the reality that despite Western assistance, the Western military operations, Western military presence in many of these countries, the security situation has deteriorated to the extent that the citizens feel frustrated and they are questioning the complicity of Western uh, countries, Western militaries, Western security operations in the deterioration of security across French-speaking African countries. So there is that possibility as well. But there is also a third factor, which is also it speaks to the uh, the weakness of democracy in many of these countries. Holding elections, the military institutions, the relationship between the military institutions and political system, political authorities, political elite, elected officials, the relationship is weak. The military have proven not really to believe in democracy, or they believe that they still have a role to play if things are not going right, rather than go through democratic channels to effect change or to bring about a new way of doing things. They believe they have to resort back to military coup. So there is also
Right.
that reality that's also taking place.
Because of that, to what extent do you think the new military leadership in the country will try to seek direct or indirect help from Russia? We've seen support for the Kremlin really gaining momentum in Africa.
Yes, I mean, Russia is on a charm offensive across Africa. I mean, we cannot deny that. Russia is in Central African Republic, it's in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and also there are, it's also in other places that it's yet to fully manifest in terms of its influence. But the reality is, uh, the military rulers, once they take over power, they are squeezed because of sanctions by ECOWAS, by the African Union, by the EU, by the Western countries, by the UN system as well. So they have to pivot to countries such as China, to countries such as Russia, and perhaps maybe in a longer term, they may even pivot to North Korea and also maybe some other Gulf states as well. They have to pivot to Iran in order for them to survive. They have to look for alternative ways of legitimizing the regime alternative ways of attracting development aid and assistance. Don't forget, many of these countries are heavily dependent on inflow of aid,
Right.
economic and development assistance. So they have to look for alternative, sources to replace the sanctions and the stoppage of Western development assistance.
Absolutely. We've seen they depend for some 40% on foreign aid and financial aid as well. Olawale Ismail, thank you very much for joining us today.